Something I get asked about a lot is what is the long-term effects of cocaine use on your nose? I was a cocaine addict for a very long time. I finally got sober in 2017, July 25th. Cocaine was a hard battle for me. I did so much of the drugs and it did cause a lot of damage to my nose. And I get asked a lot like, hey, what were these long-term effects that you got from using cocaine? These are the effects. This is what I experienced after getting sober from cocaine, but doing 1 to 2 8 balls a day of coke for a couple years. This is what I live with now. If you're new to the channel, hit the like and subscribe button. And my name is Eric. I'm not a therapist or a doctor of any sort. I just share a lot of experiences. I'm diagnosed with ADHD, PTSD, GAD, MDD, level 1 autism. I've self-harmed before, lost a wife and a father to suicide, almost lost myself to suicide. And I am a recovering cocaine and alcoholic addict. I get asked a lot, what was it like afterwards of having cocaine struggles and using cocaine? What happened to your nose? Like, what are some of the long-term effects that you've realized and you've noticed from cocaine use? And this is what I've noticed. One of the big ones is that's not nose related per se, but I do notice is my lungs. It has affected my lungs in a sense. I did smoke for a very long time. I just quit last year. That has something to do with it, but I also know that the cocaine use itself did damage my lungs some. It did damage my ability to breathe as good as I used to be able to breathe. It's not the same. I can tell you that for a fact. Now, I did get a lot of damage though done to my nose. And I've even had doctors who will ask me about my nose and how my breathing is. Here's what I've noticed though. One, I'm very, very sensitive to changes in the environment now. I used to never have any kind of sinus issues. I never got stuffed up. I was super duper healthy for the longest time. One of the things though now is, man, when spring hits, when fall hits, when summer hits, when winter hits, there's always something in the nose that I constantly have draining from my sinuses into my nose. So I'm constantly sniffing. And the thing that kind of sucks is when you're constantly sniffing or there's a shift or there's something blooming and your sinuses are out of control, you can't stop the draining. Everyone still goes, oh, well, you're sniffing a lot. You must be using. No, actually, when you're using, you don't sniff a whole lot because this is all clogged. But I get what you're trying to say. Don't be a professional on this. You actually burn in holes up here into your sinus area and into your sinus cavities. And your sinus fluids just drip. And it's horrible because it's ruined my sense of smell. My sense of smell is shot. I do not have a good sense of smell. So when it comes to people will say, oh, do you smell that? I have to get my face jammed up into it to try and remotely smell anything because my sense of smell is so damaged. There are certain smells too that are extremely strong all of a sudden that can make me sick. So it's really thrown my sense of smell into a loop where with so much I can't smell, and then some of the things I don't want to smell, I do smell. So it's really screwed up the sense of smell. The other problem is it's affected my sleep because of my breathing. I don't breathe out of my nose very well anymore, and because of how the sinuses drip, especially at night, and I like to have the bedroom window open, so you always got stuff that's coming inside when it comes to just the season change and how it affects your sinuses, that I breathe out of my mouth. I am a mouth breather when I sleep now, which means I can snore very easily. If I get lodged on my back, I snore, and when I snore, I don't sleep good. So it affects my sleep because I breathe so much now out of my mouth and not out of my nose. Trying to breathe out of my nose, it's it's always clogged. Very rarely do I ever feel that my nose is free to breathe. And if it is, it's only for a short instance. And it's horrible because I notice it when my nose is actually clear now versus any time before, because there's these rare moments where I'm oh my goodness, I can breathe, and it goes away really quick because it's damaged so much up here. We don't realize how much our sinuses drain and how much fluid actually goes through your nose. And it all just comes straight down. There's nothing like sitting there and talking to somebody and your nose just starts dripping. I've had that happen a few times, and it's kind of embarrassing. I learned to own it and just be well, I guess it's due to all the cocaine use, and it's true. It's due to all the cocaine use that I did. But it's really jacked up how much my nose will drip. It also affects the membrane walls in your nose and in your nasal cavity. So those cavities are actually pretty thin, so I can get nosebleeds really easily. If I blow my nose too hard, I can get a nosebleed very easily. I used to have a really durable nose as a kid, and I don't have a durable nose as a kid anymore, and nosebleeds are horrible. If you sit there and you try really hard and you know you have something up there and you're just blowing and blowing, I can rupture the sides of my nose, and I can feel in there the thinness, and sometimes it gets really sensitive in my nose, and that sensitivity just becomes a pain. So you kind of have this pain that's in this nose area, and you constantly feel your nose now. It's one of the things I never expected that from cocaine use. I never expected it to actually like truly damage my nose and my breathing, but it has, because you're just, all you think about, especially when you're using, is the high, getting high. You don't think of the repercussions down the road and how much it really does jack up your sense of smell. I mean, it's one of your major senses, and it's horrible when you can't smell. It's horrible when your nose just starts randomly bleeding. And it's bad because you don't realize it sometimes when your nose is bleeding. I woke up in the middle of the night because my pillow is warm or my pillow is cold even. And next thing I know, it's blood because I ended up having a nosebleed in the middle of the night, not realizing it. And I bled all over the place. It's embarrassing. It's difficult. It sucks. It's one of the prices that I pay for being a cocaine addict. You don't think of these long-term effects. And I can tell you, when I got off of cocaine, these were effects that started hitting down the road. It wasn't like immediate effects that you really notice how much your sinuses are draining, or how much that just climate change, pollution, smog, any of that changes how your nose is affected by what's in the air. I moved from California. When I moved from California, I moved to Arizona. I lived in Arizona for about 2 months. And my nose literally had to readjust, and it was still in a readjustment phase. Then I moved to Boise, and next thing you know, my nose is readjusting because there's so many different things in the air that I'm constantly breathing out of my mouth because my nose is so jacked up in the way that can't smell, always kind of clogged, always blowing my nose. And the bad thing is you don't really even want to pick your nose or do anything of that sort, because if you do, you're going to rupture and tear the side of it, and now you have a nosebleed. Now you have a mess on your hands. And let's face it, especially as guys, we don't carry around with us napkins everywhere. We don't carry around tissues everywhere. So you're just constantly like trying to clean your nose. And even when it randomly drips because your sinuses now are whacked out and it's just dripping down, next thing you know, you're constantly like this thinking you have a nosebleed, and you don't have a nosebleed, but you're always under that constant paranoia of it. You're also really susceptible to sinus infections. It's not uncommon. I mean, in the shower, my nose clears out because of that humidity in the shower. Man, I will literally blow my nose in the shower. It's one of the few times I can like clear this all out. And there's a lot of times blood and stuff in the mucus of the sinuses, just because I do have sinus infections now that I can get pretty easily. And again, it's all due to the damage that it caused by snorting cocaine. We don't think about it at all. And then later on in life, we're like, man, why do I have these problems? And you go to the doctor, and the doctor goes, yeah, you kind of did it to yourself. So these are what I've noticed of what my long-term effects of cocaine use is. I was doing 1 to 2 8 balls of coke a day straight for a little over a year. Very expensive habit, and the damage that it did, definitely not worth it. I mean, I lost a lot of money in it. I lost a job in it. I lost a lot. And that's the worst thing about drug addiction, is you lose so much and you don't realize what you're losing in life and the struggle that it is of loss. So if you're out there struggling, I mean, my heart goes out to you. I know what that battle's like. If you want to know what the first step is, just tell everybody that you're an addict. Tell everybody you're an addict and you need help. Just swallow that pride. I'm an addict. I need help. And the worst part is too, is if you're not an addict and you have a friend or a family member or a loved one in your family that is an addict, you can't get them sober. They have to hit that point of rock bottom. They can't be enabled. You can't let them manipulate anymore. You know, you have to hit that point where you wake up and that person, that individual literally goes, I can't do this anymore. I want this pain to stop, and start seeking help. And where can you seek help? I mean, I got links down below to NA and AA. That's where I started off at getting sober. It was a battle for me. I did go through cocaine withdrawals, even with the restless legs. There's a lot of different withdrawal symptoms I went through, but I also now deal with long-term damage. And that all has to do with this whole beauty up here of the damage that I caused to it by snorting cocaine. I mean, if you're going through this battle, if you've experienced anything that I haven't shared about, I mean, comment down below. I'd love to hear your input. I mean, that's what it's about, is not feeling alone. And when you don't feel alone, you realize that, hey, you know what? I can do this. What I'm going through, others have went through. And it helps build strength. I mean, none of us in life want to feel alone. So if you are struggling, check out the links down below. Comment, hit that like and subscribe button, because it's about sharing. The more that we share our experiences and our stories, nobody feels alone, and everybody gets that fighting chance to keep going a little bit further in life. And most of all, remember that you matter. Because you know, when it comes down to it, you're an amazing human being and you've been through a lot. So you know what? Don't give up now. You got this.